Hurston Waldrep was rushed back to the majors before he was ready, and we saw the consequences of that last night when Atlanta was obliterated by the Pirates, and it's the front office's fault. Yes, welcome on into Braves Today, a production of the Belief Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. I want to talk about the rotation in a few minutes and what you do between now and the end of the first half, right? Going into the All-Star break, you have a start on Sunday that you might need to figure out what to do with. Hurston Waldrep is penciled in for that one, but it feels like he shouldn't make it. Because last night, Hurston Waldrep was obliterated, and I'm going to say by the Pirates, but really just by Ryan O'Hearn. Waldrep's charged with 7 earned runs on 6 hits in 3 1/3 innings. He gave up 2 home runs. Both of them were to Ryan O'Hearn. First one was a grand slam in the first inning. The next one was a 3-run home run in the third. And it's funny because I talked yesterday about this series and I said, we're going to have to face Connor Griffin, not knowing that he was going to go in the IL a couple hours later with a finger injury. I said, you don't have O'Neal Cruz in there. They don't have Spencer Horwitz in there, but you do have to face Paul. It's just assuming it was going to be tougher for the Braves than it was the first time they faced the Pirates. And it clearly was. Skeens is not the same pitcher that he's been in his first couple of seasons. He gives up 2 runs on 8 hits, only strikes out 4 in 6 innings. But the Braves lose, and it's not close, 12-4. And that's with Atlanta scoring 2 runs in the 9th inning. Let's peel back the onion, okay? The Braves lost because Hurston Waldrep gave up 7 runs in 3 1/3, including, and all 7 of those came to Ryan O'Hearn. He drove in all 7. He's the first player, this is a shout out to Elias Stats for this. He's the first player since the RBI became a stat in 1920 to have produced each of his team's first 10 RBI in a game. Because he had another home run in the 6th inning, a 3-run shot there. So 3 swings, 10 RBI for Ryan O'Hearn. But the reason Atlanta lost, and the reason Hurston Waldrep was in a position to give up 7 runs in 3 1/3 is because he's not ready for the majors. He's not ready to come back from the injury. So let's peel this back. Hurston Waldrep, I think I've made this point on the pod before. I know I've made it on the postcast, including last night. Hurston Waldrep is a very similar style of pitcher to Ian Anderson. And we've seen the good Ian Anderson is a very good pitcher. We've seen the bad Ian Anderson is replacement level. Okay? And when I say they're the same style of pitcher, here's what I mean. I mean that they are both off-speed dominant pitchers that don't have good fastball shapes and struggle to consistently be in the zone enough to make those off-speed pitches, or to allow those off-speed pitches to be maximally effective. And if you're just here for me to, complain about the front office, that's coming. Stick around, okay? Stay, wait. But I'm breaking down the pitching first. That's what I do here on Braves Today. The issue last night for Hurston Waldrep was he was unable to be in the zone enough to get up on hitters so that they had to respect and chase the splitter. Okay? When you're trying to figure out some of this plate discipline stuff, a lot of people just look at strikes. What I think was more important when you're talking about this specific style of pitcher is to look at zone rate. How often a pitch they threw was actually in the strike zone. Because again, opposing hitters are trying their best to not chase. If you are facing Hurston Waldrep, you know you are going to see a lot of pitches down that have a good chance of dropping out of the zone. And so you are trying your hardest to not chase anything down and make it and only swing at pitches in the strike zone. And I know that sounds simplistic. Everybody's trying to do that. But there's an extra point of emphasis when you face a guy like a Hurston Waldrep on the bottom third of the zone. And if it's a borderline pitch low, let it go. Unless you're at 2 strikes, let it go. And so we saw that last night. The sinker for Hurston Waldrep, which is his primary fastball now. He threw 11 cutters and 84 pitches. He hasn't thrown a 4-seamer since he's come back up to the majors that I can see. His sinker, 44% zone rate. So less than half the time the sinker was in the zone. His slider, 33% zone rate. What happened last night is Hurston Waldrep was unable to get ahead of batters and get to 2 strikes so that he could make the chase pitches work. So he had to bring pitches into the zone to get back into the at-bat or else walk dudes. And part of the problem is he can't reliably control some of this stuff enough to throw it for strikes. His splitter, 42% zone rate, right? Again, the slider, 33%. So because they are making him come into the zone and they are putting an extra emphasis on not chasing, you see some of these pitches are just not very effective at getting guys to expand the zone and helping put batters away. Slider, 21% chase rate. Splitter, 9% chase rate. Hurston Waldrep's whole deal is I'm going to get to 2 strikes and I'm going to start firing off these splitters. And it's a very low spin rate pitch, 790 RPM this season. It is one of the lowest spin rate splitters in all of baseball. But the less of spin that a pitch has, the harder it is to control. It's not the same movement profile. Think of a splitter similar to how you think of a knuckleball, right? You don't really know where it's going to go. And so if you get to the point where you are behind on hitters, you have to either A, aim the splitter towards the upper third of the zone or middle of the zone so that it'll land somewhere in that box, or you have to throw something else because they're not going to chase it. So that was the problem for Hurston Waldrep last night. He got 7 swings on the splitter. 4 of those were put into play. He picked up 1 whiff and 2 foul balls. And this is the Ian Anderson problem. This is how Ian Anderson did things. I was at World Series Game 3 when he had not allowed a hit through 5, but he had multiple walks. So he had to adjust the third time through the last time through the order before he got pulled. What did he do? He started throwing more curveballs because he could land it in the zone. It had a 67% zone rate last night. It only got 1 whiff. It had hard hit ball off of it, multiple batted balls, all that kind of stuff. Because a curveball is not the type of pitch that you typically can survive with in the zone. It is designed to get chase out of the zone. But again, all of this stuff happened. This outing went the way. If you just look at the batted ball profile, this isn't a batted ball profile that should have given up 7 runs. He allowed 3 batted balls with really good launch angles. Optimal launch angles. And that was a line drive single to Brandon Lau at 100 miles an hour. And that was the 2 Ryan O'Hearn home runs. And 1 came on a slider in the zone. 1 came on a curveball in the zone. Other than that, it was 2 pop-ups. And it was a like 9 ground balls. Like, he got a bunch of ground balls. That was the only reason this wasn't worse. And again, from a batted ball profile, you could have seen this being a 3-run outing and not a 7-run outing. But he walked 5, and he hit a guy with a pitch. And both home runs were a direct result of some of those runners getting on base. The first the grand slam was a hit by pitch, a walk, and a single. The 3-run bomb in the third was a walk and a single. So he gave 3 of those 7 runs to the Pirates. If he doesn't hit a guy, if he doesn't walk those 2 batters, 1, yes, logically the at-bat might go differently. We don't know how that's going to break out. But 2, those could have been 3 total runs and not 7. And it could have been even worse. His final 2 batters he faced in the 4th inning both reached via walk. But Hunter Thomas, coming in for him, was actually able to get 2 ground balls and get out of the inning. He didn't let Ryan O'Hearn hit a 3rd home run there. Ryan O'Hearn hit the 3rd home run later. But I'm not blaming Hurston Waldrep for this. I want to be clear. I'm not blaming Hurston Waldrep for this. I'm blaming the front office for this. And this is something that we've seen now for multiple seasons, but specifically this year, that's got to get fixed. Let's talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, this episode's brought to you by our friends at IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom-infused coffees are the tasty, low-sugar brain and body fuel that you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack's a great way to try all of the IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. And all IQ Bar products are clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom-infused coffees. And the Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. Right now, IQ Bar is offering Braves Today listeners 20% off of all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64000. That's MLB to 64000. That's MLB to 64000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Okay, so the blame on that outing last night, Hurston Waldrep threw the pitches, and he's got to execute, right? He's got to figure it out. But the real blame for this is on the front office. And it's a problem we've seen for a while of rushing guys back from injury too soon. And I think this season, like the joke that we've made in the past is Ronald Acuña Jr. is never going to go on a rehab assignment of more than 3 days. It feels every time he goes on a rehab assignment, they lay out this plan, this slow rolling plan for him to gradually work his way back to game form. And what happens every single time? They accelerate the plan and he's back early because they think he looks good in rehab or something. And this season specifically, we've seen this get a lot worse. And it's practically everybody you can look at. Ha-Seong Kim. Ha-Seong Kim got like a week of rehab, and when he came up, he clearly was not ready. And honestly, now he's on the IL with some finger soreness or pain or whatever they're calling it, and he's going to have a lengthy rehab stint in the minors. I imagine they'll probably keep him down there. You would hope, at least. I hope, whatever. He's going to be close to that maximum 30 days to see if he can get going again before they bring him back up. Because at the end of the day, ultimately, if Ha-Seong Kim can hit his weight and can be that kind of number 8, number 9 hitter, has some speed and stolen base ability, can get on base, isn't chasing, all that kind of stuff, That makes this version of the Atlanta Braves a better team. You just got to get him back there. They rushed him back. The first time Ronald got hurt, they rushed him back. And he eventually re-injured that exact same hamstring, the exact same spot. And Drake Baldwin was out. They brought him back after 7 innings of one rehab game. They got rained out on Sunday. And they just went ahead and brought him back. And he hit a leadoff home run in his first at-bat and then went hitless for 3 weeks. We talked to Heidi Watney from Apple TV a couple weeks ago. I grabbed a clip from that real quick. She's referring mostly, the individual player she's talking about in this clip is Austin Riley. But I think the overarching point, and there's a quote in there from her that I want to highlight. So again, here real quick, this clip is Heidi Watney from Apple TV on the show a couple weeks ago. This is before we played that second Apple TV game, talking about Austin Riley.
I've talked to so many players who have Mike Lowell, Troy Tulowitzki, like really good players that had that core muscle surgery, that sports hernia. They say it takes 2 years to come back from that. That the first year you don't feel right at the plate because you use so much of your hips and your torque for your swing. And it takes a solid full year. And he had that surgery last August, so it hasn't even been a year. And I think that probably has a lot to do with his struggles offensively this season. He's still defensively great at third base, and to try and not take that, your offense into the field with you, is really hard to do. And to try not, I talked to him earlier this year, it's a struggle to try not to not let it just be a grind mentally. So I want to get out there and talk to him tonight, follow up with that, because I talked to a couple of guys who've had that surgery, who took, and they came back. Both of those guys are great players, all-star players, but it just takes a little longer than you expect. There's one period of time where you can be back on the field, and then there's another period of time where your body feels right again.
That final quote right there. There's one period of time where you can be back on the field, and there's another period of time when your body feels right again. That is the part that Atlanta has missed in getting some of these guys back. When they've rushed back a Ronald Acuña Jr., when they've rushed back a Drake Baldwin, when they've rushed back a Hurston Waldrep. We have seen over an extended stretch, not massive, but 10 appearances, 56 and change as far as innings go last year, that Hurston Waldrep can be in the zone enough for this whole thing to work. He ran a walk rate last year of under 10% in that stretch, and a strikeout rate of 24%. And what happened? 2.88 ERA that was mostly sustainable. Fielded independent pitching there of 3.21, because he was able to be in the zone enough, mixing up his different fastballs. He did use the cutter a lot more last year. It was his second most used pitch, actually. It was his number 2 pitch to righties, and it was tied for his number 2 pitch along with the sinker to lefties. But he was in the zone enough where he was consistently getting ahead of batters, and he could make them expand to go after the splitter. His chase rate last year, 24.5%, was 8th percentile in baseball. But he was 75th percentile in whiffs at 28.5%, because when they had to expand, when they had to chase, it was that splitter. And they just could not seem to make great contact against that splitter. Last year, opposing hitters hit 150 with a 225 slug on the splitter. And he got more strikeouts on it, 42, than balls in play, 38. Because he had the time to get comfortable into the season, feel good about locating all of his pitches. You have a guy who's already not incredibly consistent at hitting the zone. He's also coming off of elbow surgery. And you bring him back and you rush him back to the majors after just a handful of rehab starts. What did you think was going to happen? what was the most realistic outcome for Hurston Waldrep this year? I would have loved it to be looking really good and being your number 2, number 3 in your rotation the rest of the season. It's clear he was rushed too early to do that. And again, I'm going to go back to Heidi here. There's one period of time where you can be back on the field, and there's another period of time before your body feels right again. And there are certain players that are good enough, talented enough, and productive enough where you can live with a diminished version of them, right? I don't want to, but 85, 90% of Ronald Acuña Jr. is still better than 100% of, say, Mike Yastrzemski, right? 85% of Drake Baldwin is, one, giving you defensive value that Dom Smith is not, but two, is still better than a Sandy Leon or a Chadwick Tromp. Starting pitchers, it's a little bit different. Because if Drake Baldwin is not hitting well when he comes back from rehab, one, he's providing defensive value. Two, he's still better. There's other aspects of his game where he's going to be able to help you. And he's going to get there. He's providing marginal value in other ways. But a starting pitcher, you're going to lose games, just like you lost last night's game. And if you give Ryan O'Hearn his home runs, but you take away the walks and you take away the hit by pitches, Atlanta has a chance in that game to keep it close. They had opportunities against Paul Skeens and just couldn't quite cash them in. The Braves had 2 on, including 1 in scoring position in the first inning, and got 1 run out of it off of Paul Skeens. In the 3rd inning, they had back-to-back base hits, got a run in off of Paul Skeens, and then 3 straight outs. And then after that, they were down 7-0. And so at a certain point, it's really hard to fight back. 5th inning, back-to-back singles. They had, back-to-back singles to open the inning. They had opportunities to score runs. And if this is a 4-run game, if this is a 4-run Pirates score and not a 7-run Pirates score, the game probably unfolds a little bit differently. Atlanta's able to keep battling. The front office has rushed guys back too soon. We've seen it. And they've got to stop. And the good news is, it looks like maybe they have. Let's talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. When Ronald got hurt earlier in the year, last game he had played was May 2nd. That was the 2nd game in Colorado. He came back May 19th in Miami. He was the DH that day. So he was out for 17 total days. No rehab games. And he started off with a binge of hits, right? He had 4 hits in the first 3 games back. In that Miami series, he had 4 hits. He scored 5 runs. Yeah, he scored 5 runs on 4 hits. He walked a handful of times, drove a couple in, all that good stuff. He didn't actually hit a home run for another week and a half. May 28th was his first home run after he came back on May 19th. And then he hit 5 home runs in 4 games. And then nothing. And then he went down in that first game against Chicago. Walt Weiss said yesterday that Ronald could begin his rehab assignment next week. So to recap all of this, the first time he got hurt, he missed 17 days. And he came straight back without a rehab assignment. This time, he got hurt on June 9th. He's already been out. 29 days. Despite them saying that the injury's in the same spot, but not as severe as the first time. They're taking this one slower. They're not rushing him back. He's going to actually go on a rehab appearance. Is that because it's the second injury in the same spot? Or is that because they feel like they rushed him back the first time? I'm guessing it's probably because it's the second injury in the same spot. But there are other guys that they are also being cautious with, even though a lot of these don't necessarily pretend to be that serious as well. Robert Suárez last pitched on June 19th. He went down with some inflammation and stuff. They're taking it slow with him. He, according to Mark Bowman of MLB.com, the thought process is maybe a week or two after the All-Star break. They're taking it slow with Robert Suárez, despite you could make the argument right now that we need Robert Suárez back in the pen because you've had situations where you haven't had another leverage reliever and you've had to run Cookie back out there again or some other nonsense like that. So hopefully they get this worked out soon. And hopefully this is the sign that they are being more cautious and more patient with these injured players because they're no longer willing to make that trade-off I mentioned earlier. They're no longer willing to have 80 or 85% of a guy, thinking that's marginally better than a full version of somebody else. And we don't know the exact logistics and mechanics of Ronald's injury, right? If he takes an extra 2 weeks and then goes on a rehab stint, is that enough for him to not re-injure it? We don't know. None of us have seen the medical reports. We don't know if they think that was just coincidence, if that was because he was rushed, if that was just no matter what, he was going to re-injure it because there's some instability there because of the previous injury and there's nothing really you can do about it other than hope it doesn't happen. We don't know any of that stuff. But I think it's a good sign that they appear to have learned from the mistakes that they've made in not bringing guys back too quickly. And yes, I would love to have Ronald back. This offense was not good in the month of June. It's been better in July. The pitching's now collapsed. But I would rather wait a little longer to get him back and have him for the rest of the year than to maybe kind of rush him back and have some more injuries. And in the meantime, now the Braves are in a little bit of a pickle as far as if they are not going to keep Hurston Waldrep in the majors, right? If they want him to go down and finish getting the rehab that he didn't get, they're in a little bit of a pickle as far as who starts that final game on Sunday. Because Owen Murphy got optioned down yesterday after pitching an inning of relief on Monday. And again, I said it yesterday, I'll say it again today, Grant Holmes should have been in the pen instead of Owen Murphy, and Murphy should have just been penciled in to start on Tuesday or start today or whatever, right? You could have pushed Waldrep to Wednesday, started Murphy on Tuesday. Like, I believe in letting relievers break in the bullpen, but asking a kid who's never been a reliever before to come into a tie game in extra innings against a division rival is not the way to do it, right? In retrospect, and really honestly up front, I think we all thought this. Grant Holmes in the pen, you feel a lot better about that getting through the 10th inning okay than you do Owen Murphy. Nothing against Owen Murphy. I was impressed with the stuff that I saw. But he was optioned out. He can't come back up. Unless there's an injury. He can't come back up until after the All-Star break. And your starting pitching options are kind of slim. Anthony Molina has been a long man and a spot starter for Gwinnett. He can't come up. He hasn't been down 15 days yet. Victor Medeiros has pitched 16 times for Gwinnett. Only 5 of those are starts. He's been down there 15 days. He could come back up and make a spot start for you. I don't think they want to do that. I think we all know we're not going to use Cookie Carrasco as a spot starter. Martin Perez is on the IL. Hurston Waldrep was supposed to be the starter in the final game before the All-Star break, right? The way this works, Grant Holmes was announced for today, Bryce Elder for tomorrow, which means the rotation lines up for Chris Sale on Friday in St. Louis, Ronaldo Lopez on Saturday in St. Louis, and Hurston Waldrep on Sunday. The only real option you have here, if you don't want to have to start Hurston Waldrep on Sunday in St. Louis, is somehow save J.R. Ritchie from having to pitch in bulk the rest of the week and throw him into the rotation for Sunday. Meaning, once again, you're running a man short in the bullpen. Now, I'm assuming I'm recording this just short of 9 a.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. I'm assuming Connor Thomas goes down today. He pitched longer than Waldrep did yesterday. He threw 60 pitches yesterday. There's no way they're going to keep him in the pen and him be unusable. So, my guess would be either Anthony Molina as a long man or Carlos Carrasco, who is re-signing with the organization on a minor league deal, coming back up as a long man. And I'm going to be really frustrated if they go to him again, because if they go to him, he's going to get used because you're running shorthanded with J.R. Ritchie. If you option Hurston Waldrep down, you can call up another traditional reliever and just give Ritchie one of your bullpen spots. And right now, your only options are Roldy Munoz, who I can't figure out why he's not been given an opportunity. I can't figure out why they just don't want to bring him back to the majors. This season for Atlanta, he threw 2 innings, and he wasn't great. 3 runs on 5 hits. He wasn't great, mind you. But in AAA, he's been pretty gosh darn decent. 2.30 ERA. He has allowed 5 runs. That's not right. He's allowed 8 earned runs in 31 and a third innings. He has walked 16. He struck out 42. You can call up Roldy Munoz. You can call up Hayden Harris. Both guys that relief prospects you've developed that you need to give a shot. But the only option is J.R. Ritchie. That's it. There's no other way, unless you're prepared to do a bullpen game on Sunday, that you can avoid having to throw Hurston Waldrep. And then coming out of the break, you have to bide your time until you can get Owen Murphy back. Unless there's an injury. If there's an injury, you can call him back immediately. But like right now, your rotation is Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez, Grant Holmes, Bryce Elder, and you've got to figure out a 5th spot. You don't have Martin Perez. They said it's only a contusion, right? They didn't call it a broken bone or anything. Apparently, they didn't see anything on the x-ray. I'm guessing they didn't see anything on the imaging, an MRI or CT scan or whatever they gave him. No idea when he'll be back. But you don't have a 5th starter here. Unless you want to let Hurston Waldrep keep trying to figure it out at the major league level, which feels like it's not a great plan. There's no great options here. There's no slam dunk you should do this. Just a lot of, oh, this sucks. What do we do with this? Let me know what you think they should do. If you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment down below. If you're listening on audio, I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can reach out that way. Kind of curious, would you give Hurston Waldrep the Sunday start? Would you try to go with a bullpen game knowing that everybody gets 4 days off except for Raisel Iglesias? They're in the pen. Would you try to hold J.R. Ritchie over and just maybe just move him into a rotation spot, option Waldrep down and get another reliever and do that? What would you do? Let me know. But that'll do it for Braves today for Wednesday, July 8th. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time.